What's up, passengers? Welcome back to another video. Today I played the game Dispatch, which was developed by the same people who made games like The Wolf Among Us and the Telltale Walking Dead games, and is probably one of the best games to come out this year, with a talented cast such as Aaron Paul, best known for playing Jesse Pinkman from the TV show Breaking Bad.
Oh, Heil Hitler, bitch!
And also Jeffrey Wright, who's best known for his role as Isaac in The Last of Us, and race-swapped Commissioner Gordon. But without further ado, let's get on with the rest of the video as I play some absolute peak. We begin our adventure playing as a guy named Robert Robertson, and yes, before you say anything, that's his actual name, and we're in an apartment building interrogating a guy the game describes as a soothing goon, which is also what I like to do every night.
Huh?
I find out that we're looking for a person called Shroud, who apparently killed our father, and he's located at the steel mill. After a quick interrogation, I dangle the goon off the balcony and am brought to a tough decision whether to push him off or pull him up. I decide to give in to my intrusive thoughts by pushing him off just for the fun of it. I guess the goon got lucky because he ended up landing on a mattress. It turns out that our guy Robert is some type of Iron Man ripoff called Mecha Man. We eventually end up at the steel mill, where we end up taking down various bad guys through a series of QuickTime events. This part of the game also introduces us to a hacking segment, which makes up a part of the gameplay for this game. After hacking into the system, like I was a Russian interfering with American elections, I spit out a shitty one-liner, and we're reintroduced to the goon we interrogated earlier. After hearing him continue to talk bad about our dead father and fed up with his bullshit, we call in our mech suit to crash on top of him, and I'm honestly surprised he survived without injury despite everything we put him through. It turns out that the goon is some type of supervillain called Toxic, which is also what all my previous talking stages called me. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show you some of the fight between Mecha Man and Toxic because the villain is fully naked with his schlong out, but let's just say he was definitely packing some heat.
You need to leave!
After a brief fight, I end up getting pinned down by a bunch of villains. It turns out that Shroud is after something called the Astral Pulse, which is used to power the Mecha Man suit. After refusing to give up the Astral Pulse, we end up escaping, but we ended up exploding mid-flight because a bomb ended up being planted on the mech suit. This results in us getting injured, a botched media interview, and us no longer being able to engage in superhero work. After realizing we just hit a new low, like when she said she's not ready for a relationship, I witnessed a group of robbers stealing some TVs, and me being the cocky person that I am, I attempted to stop them despite being injured. After attempting to swing a right hook, I ended up getting jumped, which gave me flashbacks to middle school. But we end up getting saved by another superhero called Blonde Blazer, who ends up fixing our broken arm and takes us to the only place to go after a bad day, the bar. We end up talking over some drinks and realize that having a high alcohol tolerance might be an actual superpower.
That was impressive.
Oh. It's fine. Don't worry about keeping up. Something to do with the powers. It takes a lot for me to feel anything.
It isn't until we're rudely interrupted by a guy wearing bright orange spandex and revealing his very little chest hairs. It turns out he has fire powers and is appropriately named Flambe. After extinguishing the situation, which results in Flambe's teeth getting chipped, we end up getting kicked out the bar and go on a flight through the city with Blonde Blazer to chill on top of a billboard. After sharing our origin story, tensions are a little bit high because she ends up rizzing me up.
Treat me like white tees, don't get me dirty.
And I'm presented with the option to kiss her or let the moment pass. I end up passing on the kiss because I'm not the type of dude that kisses on the first date. It turns out that Blonde Blazer wanted to recruit me to join her superhero company to work as a dispatcher, and considering the state of the economy right now, I accepted her offer, which introduces us to another aspect of this game's gameplay, which is to send out heroes to solve various situations throughout the city. The next day, we're introduced to another superhero who can make everything wet, called Waterboy, which is also a cute nickname women like to give me.
What do you mean by that?
and he's a little socially awkward but adorable. Unfortunately, our conversation is interrupted when Blonde Blazer drags us to an empty room and tells me to take my clothes off, which gives me traumatic flashbacks when I was left alone with Father Gabriel at Sunday school. While I was in the middle of changing, we were rudely interrupted by a former supervillain turned hero called Invisigal, and if you didn't look at the thumbnail already, she's definitely gonna play an important role in the story later on. After getting acquainted with the office environment, we decided to take a quick bathroom break where we're introduced to a guy named Royd who definitely violated the unspoken male bathroom rule. But we exchanged the wholesome fist pump with our unwashed hands. After joking with Royd in the bathroom, we reunite with an old friend, Trackstar, or Chase, who turned out to basically be a second father to Robert after his dad passed. He reveals to us that his powers allow him to move faster than the average human at the cost of aging rapidly, which is why he appears as an old man despite being only 39 years old. I guess this is an unfortunate case of black not cracking. After a brief reunion, we're introduced to the team of heroes we're in charge of, and they're from a lot of different places, like Sonar is from San Francisco, Flambe is from Afghanistan, and this girl Prism is from Flint, Michigan. I guess there's no question where she got her powers from. After getting introduced to the team, it was time for our first shift as a dispatcher. Unfortunately, for the sake of the video and storytelling, I won't be showing too much of the dispatch gameplay as it can get pretty repetitive and boring. However, Invisigal volunteers herself to investigate a situation at a donut shop as a way to get herself unbanned from the place. She then proceeds to get distracted by asking us what our favorite donut is, and I said I like jelly-filled donuts. And of course she had to be weird about it.
You like that gush in your throat? Cool. Okay, say less. What the fuck?
We're then forced into another hacking minigame and realize that the donut shop is in the middle of getting robbed. This results in a violent brawl between the robber and Invisigal. After failing a hacking minigame, the robber ended up escaping after she disobeyed our order to go after the robber. But at least we get to know that Granny has been hitting the squats cause look at that cake.
I'ma eat it.
After our first shift, we end up getting into a heated argument with Invisigal, which eventually ends with her punching me in the face before walking off. And to be honest, that was kinda hot. I think I might be attracted to women with a little bit of attitude. We eventually end up in a meeting with Blonde Blazer where we end up lying to her about how we got a bloody nose. It turns out that despite the poor performance from today's shift, she's surprisingly quite impressed with our work. As we walk out of the office, we're then introduced to Phenomenon, who turns out to be Blonde Blazer's boyfriend, so I'm kinda glad I didn't kiss him when we first met, cause the last thing I want to be involved in is a love triangle. He then tries to convince me to eat dinner with them at a sushi restaurant in Tokyo, but I respectfully decline because I don't want to end up being the third wheel. The next episode opens with Royd helping me move all of Robert's Mecha Man equipment and roasting my empty apartment.
Every time I walk in this place, I get sad. That not happen to you?
Robert's apartment kinda looks like the average male living space you would find on Reddit. As we're both getting ready to move the last box out of Robert's apartment, Roy talks about how we're missing the Astral Pulse, which is essential to power the Mecha Man suit, and Robert adds that he's been unable to track it down after the explosion, but Roy reassures us and says that he's willing to create a replica from scratch. After getting roasted for Robert's lack of interior design skills, it was time for us to clock into work to begin another shift. However, we're interrupted by Blonde Blazer, who drags me into an empty room and tells us that she broke up with her boyfriend Phenomenon and tells us we needed to cut someone from the team. During the shift, a conflict occurred between Malevola and Invisigal as they were attempting to catch a fleeing suspect. So we decided to call everyone back to base and improve the team's chemistry with each other by engaging in some much needed team building exercises. But it turned out that this meeting became a pep talk. One motivational speech later, it was time to continue with the rest of the shift. Once our shift was over, I realized that Invisigal was outside the coverage area and tracked her down at a playground, which would normally be considered a red flag if anyone else was doing it. It turns out that Invisigal is feeling down because she feels like she doesn't belong on the team. But me being somewhat of a motivational speaker, I managed to cheer her up and allow her to redeem herself by stopping some criminals from robbing a jewelry store. After doing a hacking minigame that turned on the lights which ended up blinding the robber, Invisigal engages in some hand-to-hand combat and says what can only be described as the corniest one-liner in all of superhero media.
Lights out, Thundercuck.
which results in a small victory for her and the rest of the team. Meanwhile, I'm pulled into a room and I'm forced to make an important decision of whether to cut Sonar or Coop. Unfortunately, I decided to cut Coop from the team, which was a decision I didn't want to make. But since Sonar is voiced by Moist Critical, I spared him, so I guess you can say that I'm pretty biased. But at least Coop left me with a cool souvenir in the form of a knife that I ended up adding to my cubicle. Fortunately, I won't be able to show you the opening for this episode, because let's just say it contains things that you can only find on a certain adult website. But I will put up this devious screenshot to show you what you're missing. After witnessing Invisigal's wet dream and Robert's morning routine, it was time to begin my shift. But as I boot up the computer, I'm greeted by a bunch of NSFW pop-ups like I was trying to watch a movie on a pirated website. And it turned out that the team were playing a prank on me. Ha ha. Very funny, guys. Afterwards, we test out the new Mecha Man suit with Royd, which went very poorly. Suddenly, we're interrupted by Invisigal, who asks about how we goon while in the Mecha Man suit, and Robert responds by mentioning that he goons in the suit all the time. Which is honestly a weird conversation to have with a woman, because if I were to talk to a girl about how often I be gooning, then I would most likely receive a restraining order or get put on a watch list. But Invisigal and Robert end up in a staring contest, and I can already feel that there's some type of sexual tension between these two. Afterwards, I accidentally walk in on Blazer changing, which would normally be a HR violation, but instead, she asked me to help her out and make sure she looks good because apparently she's attending some type of event. But she also lets me know that her now ex-boyfriend Phenomenon is feeling depressed and expects me to cheer him up despite not being a qualified therapist. Despite this, we managed to give him some insane advice, but ended up getting glass shards in our chest from Phenomenon standing up, so we're forced to go to the bathroom to take it out of our chest, until we're interrupted by Invisigal, and I'm kinda surprised that she's here, because I don't recall the office having gender neutral bathrooms. Anyways, she confesses to us that she had a dream that we were fucking.
I had a dream last night that we were fucking.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Ah! Yes!
Which is probably one of the most insane things said by a woman. But before things could get any spicier in the bathroom, I got cockblocked by Waterboy, who was in the middle of taking a shit. This was one of the few moments I felt blue-balled. This is all your fault, Waterboy. I could have bagged her already. With the shards removed and my balls still full, it was time for another shift. Suddenly, I witnessed Waterboy get bullied by Flambe over a little mistake. Not wanting anything bad to happen to our adorable pal Waterboy, I decided to throw a protein shake at him. But before he could retaliate, Blonde Blazer walks into the room, where we're forced to make another decision of who we want to add to our team after cutting Coop. And this was probably one of the easiest decisions, because as much as I like Waterboy, I had to choose Phenomenon because he's basically a bootleg Superman without the intelligence. But like my recently convicted high school gym teacher, he caught me half naked in the locker room to thank me for adding him to the team. After our final shift of the day, we end up reminiscing about our dead father after finding an old childhood photo in our desk, and giving more insane advice to Phenomenon after we caught him watching old videos with his ex. But we're brought to the decision you've all been waiting for, which is choosing whether I watch a movie with Invisigal or go to dinner with Blonde Blazer. This was a harder decision than when I had to choose whether I live with my mom or dad during their divorce. But I end up choosing to go to the movie with Invisigal because I'd let that woman do unspeakable things to me.
What do you mean by that?
Speaking of women, if my future girlfriend doesn't look like Invisigal, then I don't want her. With $86 down the drain, I end up surprising her at the movie theater, but I'm still shocked that we spent nearly $90 for this. But I guess with inflation and overpriced movie theater concessions, it's no surprise. But with large popcorn, Sour Patch Kids, Milk Duds, a beverage, and an absolute baddie by our side, I guess it was all worth the price. After our date with Invisigal, the next episode opens with Robert working out in the gym because it's important to maintain physical fitness while also flashbacking to our time as Mecha Man during the first encounter with Flambe. After forgetting the bench press without a spotter, it was time for another shift that required us to do various odd jobs, from judging a middle school talent show. After continuing to repair our mech suit and telling Chase that we're unsure about killing Shroud, it was time to continue with the rest of our shift. After work, the team decides to invite me to the one place you go after a long day: the bar. Unlike the first episode where we went to a bar, this bar was unique because it exclusively served supervillains. When I approached the door, Robert tells the bouncer that he's a notorious pervert and is immediately let in, which is surprising because when I tell people I'm a notorious pervert, I end up getting pepper sprayed and told I can't be within 10 feet of an elementary school. The night starts off pretty chill when I end up catching up with Invisigal and she tells me that she had fun at the movies by calling it a date. I guess we're one step closer to wifing her up if she considers the finale of the previous episode a date. My ears were then blessed with one of the craziest lines I've heard in any piece of media.
You might like me loud sometime.
What did he say?
I guess she's freakier than I thought, which low-key turned me on. After getting a semi in the middle of the bar, getting drinks for everyone, and hearing Flambe's amazing singing voice,
Bitch, my name's Robert, such a bitch whose name is Robert. I'm a bitch, I'm a bitch. I'm such a fucking bitch. I have no hopes, I have no dreams. And a tiny little pin, and it doesn't even function anyway. Because I never got its functions.
we end up getting knocked out and wake up eating tacos, which constantly flashes back to a massive bar fight where we got punched in the balls by an Irish leprechaun. After munching down on some tacos, we end up revealing our superhero identity as Mecha Man. Surprisingly, everyone took it well and had some newfound respect for me. Unfortunately, Flambe didn't take it so well and attempted to incinerate me like I was a Jew at Auschwitz, but I end up getting saved by Golem. After the team revealed all of their real names to me, it was time for the next episode, which opens with us getting to test the Mecha Man suit again. Just like the previous tests, it didn't go well, and the suit ended up exploding with us in it, which results in us going to the emergency room. While injured, we get visited by Royd and Chase, who give me a lecture about my potential feelings towards Invisigal, which brings a whole new meaning to the term coaches don't play. After walking out of the emergency room like an absolute Chad, it was time for another shift. We then end up having a therapy session in our empty apartment with our dog while drinking whiskey straight from the bottle, which is usually an indicator of a midlife crisis that's about to occur. We're suddenly interrupted by our friends who barge in while I'm still in my underwear, like they were my parents walking in on me while I was cranking my hog. It turns out they want to throw a little house party while they make a plan to find the Astral Pulse. And this is one of my favorite parts in the entire game because of the song they decided to use to accompany the scene. As more people entered our apartment, I just realized that Robert is literally me, because this is how I be at the function. It isn't until Invisigal pulls us into the middle and we end up dancing together, which turns out to be a really cute moment between the two of them. Unfortunately, the party is cut short when Chase crashes out on Invisigal. I guess the grumpy old man symptoms are finally starting to show. This eventually ends in Robert kicking everyone out of his apartment. Afterwards, we end up having a heart-to-heart moment with Chase, but it turns out that Invisigal went on a dangerous solo mission to try and retrieve the Astral Pulse. After doing many hacking minigames in order to help Invisigal, she ends up getting pinned down by Shroud. Instead of trying to help her, Robert just kept saying words of encouragement, like telling her to not give up, like it was somehow gonna do something. Instead, Chase ends up using the last of his super speed powers to save Invisigal at the cost of his own health. We end up flashing back to the year 2003, when Robert was a kid and a younger version of Chase is babysitting us while our dad is away. Chase tells us that he's running to the store and asks what we wanted. I was presented with 3 options, which were cigars, beer, or Twinkies. I end up choosing the Twinkies because Robert is probably 12 years old at this time, and I don't want him to succumb to poor life choices. It quickly flashes forward to Robert seeing his longtime friend now in the hospital. Blonde Blazer also happens to be in the same room and tells us that we should consider cutting Invisigal from the team because she's currently suspended and there's an investigation regarding last episode's incident. I end up telling her that I'll get back to her about it because Robert has a lot in his mind. After getting some snacks, it was time for another shift, which was surprisingly chill compared to previous shifts. Afterwards, we end up having a meeting with the whole team, and I'm forced to make the decision of whether to cut Invisigal from the team or Defender. I end up choosing the Defender, which lowers the team's morale, but Robert ends up having the greatest motivational speech I've ever heard. One motivational speech later, and like a creepy Hollywood director, I walked in on Invisigal changing. I reassured her that it wasn't her fault and was willing to give her a second chance. She reveals to us that she was the one that planted the bomb on us, which caused the Mecha Man suit to explode back in the first episode. After forgiving her, she proceeds to give me puppy eyes, and if I had a girl look at me the same way Invisigal looked at Robert, then I'd absolutely fold. But before she left the locker room, she pressed me against the locker and proceeded to start making out with me. And wanting to match her energy, I leaned in and embraced the kiss. But just like my previous talking stages, it was short-lived and she ends up leaving me. I eventually end up at a bar depressed, alone, and with a bloody hand. It turns out that the bartender is a little bit of a pervert for Blonde Blazer, but who wouldn't be? I'm then presented with the choice to either glass the bartender or let it go. I end up choosing to let it go because the bartender isn't doing anything wrong to hurt me or others. Suddenly, a bullet flies past Robert's face as he just witnessed the bartender get absolutely murdered in front of him. It turns out that the bartender was shot by an old man who was with us at the bar, and that old man happens to be Shroud, who was the villain that we were introduced to in the first episode. After getting tortured and threatening to kill Shroud, we get saved by Blonde Blazer. Shortly afterwards, there are multiple explosions that occur throughout the city, which makes it feel like a typical day in the Middle East. But now, it's time for the finale of this amazing game. Our shift started pretty rough because we were short-staffed as the city was getting attacked by Shroud's gang of supervillains, who are called the Red Ring. As more of our heroes started coming in, we ended up recruiting Waterboy to our team, because based on the situation in the city, we're starting to get a little desperate. Suddenly, Coop appeared, and we were forced to fight her, and this part of the game stressed me out so much because I was struggling to answer calls and dispatch heroes while also trying to fight Coop at the same time. But ultimately, I was unsuccessful, so I rallied my team to fall back to the SDN HQ to regroup. As Robert's about to retrieve his Mecha Man suit, I noticed Royd get into an altercation with Invisigal, who told me that she was going to betray us and proceeds to tie her up. It turns out it was all just a huge misunderstanding because Invisigal only stole the Astral Pulse for herself in order to protect us from Shroud, so I end up cutting her free with some scissors that you'd most likely find in an elementary school classroom. Then, we took down an enemy named Thumbstick, while he was simply trying to use the bathroom. Invisigal then tells us to put his dick away, which would require me to touch it. So I comply with her request, but this wouldn't be the first time I had another man's meat in my hand.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
With the new suit acquired, which looks like a significant improvement over the first one, we were officially ready to kick some ass. But it turns out that Shroud also has a mech of his own, so you already know that this is going to be an interesting fight. The fight consisted of a lot of quick time events and surprise cameos from Blonde Blazer and the rest of the team to come back me up. We were then forced to fight Coop and defeated her by destroying her wings. After some more quick time events while fighting Shroud, we're then saved by Chase, who's surprisingly more agile and rocking a new suit. And it's later revealed that he got the suit from Blonde Blazer's gem. And it turns out that Blonde Blazer isn't actually blonde. After destroying Shroud's mech, he proceeds to threaten to harm Robert's dog Beef. And that's it. He has officially crossed the line, so it's time to put an end to Shroud once and for all. But in order to ensure the safety of Robert's dog, it's important that we give Shroud the Astral Pulse. So I decide to outsmart him by giving him 2 of them, one being a decoy and one being the real thing. For a second, I thought I messed up when I noticed that Shroud was becoming very powerful. But eventually, he ended up vomiting like it was a morning after drinking with the boys. Suddenly, Shroud proceeds to shoot me, but Invisigal manages to take a bullet from me, which shows that she's insanely loyal. Only if my ex-girlfriend was like that. But this causes Robert to become enraged and start beating on Shroud like we were Spider-Man or Daredevil not holding back. With Shroud nearly defeated and begging for mercy, I was brought to a difficult decision of whether to kill or spare Shroud. But due to how he threatened her dog, nearly killed Invisigal, and indirectly put Chase in the hospital, I ended up killing him, which made me feel like the Punisher.
Any scumbag, any lowlife, any maggot piece of shit that I put down, I did it because I liked it. Hell, I loved it.
Luckily, Invisigal ended up surviving, but needs to go to the hospital since she did get shot in the shoulder. But as I escorted her to the ambulance, she points out that we have blood on our lips before sharing a passionate kiss.
Oh, you got something on you.
I see. Blood? I'm a bleeder.
Well boys, we finally did it. After successfully romancing Invisigal and saving the city from Shroud and the rest of the Red Ring, we have officially completed the story of Dispatch, and I can say that's probably one of the best games to come out this year. This game deserves all the praise it gets. It even got nominated for the Game Awards, so I pray that it wins. I hope the developers continue to expand this franchise by releasing a Season 2, spin-offs, and even potential comics. But that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.